Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you for a moment because somebody needs to hear this loud and clear today. I'm going to say something that might hurt a little, but it's going to help a whole lot. If he sends you that message, the one that confuses you, the one that pulls you in and pushes you away at the same time, you need to block him immediately. Not tomorrow, not after you think about it, immediately. When a man sends mixed signals, blocking is sometimes an act of self-respect, not anger. And that's something a lot of people misunderstand. People assume that blocking means you're emotional, bitter, or trying to prove a point. But most of the time it has nothing to do with rage and everything to do with clarity. Self-respect is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't argue. It simply removes itself from situations that feel wrong. When someone sends messages that confuse you instead of comfort you, that disturb your peace instead of strengthening it, the most powerful response isn't a long explanation or an emotional conversation. The most powerful response is distance. Mixed signals are dangerous because they create emotional addiction. One day he's warm, affectionate, and attentive, and the next day he's cold, distant, or unavailable. That inconsistency keeps you emotionally hooked, always hoping the good version of him will come back. Over time, you stop asking whether the relationship is healthy and start asking how to get back to the version of him you liked. That's when self-respect begins to fade. Blocking isn't about punishing him. It's about breaking that emotional cycle before it breaks you. A woman with self-respect understands that clarity is a requirement, not a luxury. If a man wants you, you'll feel secure, not anxious. You'll feel chosen, not optional. When messages start leaving you overthinking, rereading, questioning your value, or doubting your intuition, something is already wrong. Anger reacts. Self-respect responds. Blocking is a response that says, I refuse to entertain confusion. It's choosing peace over potential and reality over excuses. Many people stay connected because they want closure, but closure rarely comes from the person who caused the confusion. Closure comes from deciding you deserve better. Every message you answer tells him he still has access to you, even if he hasn't earned it. Access without responsibility teaches people that they can show up halfway and still be rewarded. Blocking removes that reward. It sends a message without saying a word. I value myself enough to walk away from inconsistency. There's also a deeper layer to this. Mixed signals often appear when someone wants emotional benefits without emotional commitment. He enjoys knowing you care. He likes having you available. He likes the attention, the validation, the comfort, but he doesn't want to carry the weight of responsibility. Self-respect recognizes this imbalance. Blocking restores balance by taking back your energy, your time, and your emotional investment. Fear stops many people from blocking. Fear of losing him. Fear of seeming dramatic. Fear of being misunderstood. But self-respect understands that anyone who truly values you will not be confused by your boundaries. A man who cares will reflect, adjust, and step up. A man who doesn't will disappear. In both cases, blocking gives you the truth faster than waiting ever will. Blocking also protects your emotional health. Constant mixed signals create anxiety, lower confidence, and make you question your worth. Over time, you start shrinking to keep the connection alive. You tolerate less than you deserve just to avoid silence. Self-respect says silence is better than disrespect. Silence can heal. Confusion cannot. When you block someone sending mixed signals, you're not closing a door out of anger. You're opening a door for peace. You're saying your heart is not a playground for uncertainty. You're choosing emotional maturity over emotional chaos. Self-respect isn't loud, dramatic, or aggressive. Sometimes it's just one quiet decision that changes everything. Words without consistent actions are emotional manipulation, even when they sound kind, caring, or full of promise. Many people get trapped because they focus on what is being said instead of what is being done. A man can send messages that sound loving, apologetic, or hopeful, but if his actions never align with those words, the words lose their value. Consistency is the language of sincerity. When someone truly means what they say, their behavior naturally follows. When behavior and words don't match, confusion begins, and confusion is often used to keep someone emotionally attached without offering real commitment. Emotional manipulation doesn't always look cruel or intentional. Sometimes it comes wrapped in sweetness, humor, or vulnerability. He may say he misses you, that you're special, that he's thinking about you, yet his actions show a lack of effort, presence, or respect. This imbalance slowly shifts the responsibility onto you. You start filling in the gaps. You make excuses for him. You explain away his absence. Over time, you begin working harder to maintain a connection that he is barely maintaining at all. That is not love. That is emotional labor being placed on the wrong person. When words are used without matching actions, they create false hope. Hope is powerful, but false hope is destructive. It keeps you waiting, believing that change is coming, that effort will eventually show up, that things will make sense soon. Meanwhile, time passes, energy is drained, and self-worth is quietly eroded. Emotional manipulation thrives in this space because as long as hope exists, the connection remains open. Blocking becomes necessary not because you are angry, but because you refuse to live in a cycle of expectation and disappointment. Actions reveal priorities. A man who values you will find ways to show up even when life is busy or difficult. He will be clear about his intentions. He will not leave you guessing about where you stand. When someone truly cares, consistency feels natural, not forced. When someone doesn't, their words become a tool to delay accountability. They promise clarity later, effort soon, commitment someday. Someday becomes a holding place where nothing actually changes. Blocking in this situation is an act of emotional intelligence. It recognizes that listening to empty words is more damaging than facing temporary silence. Silence allows reflection. It allows healing. It allows you to reconnect with yourself instead of constantly analyzing someone else's behavior. When you remove access, you remove the ability for someone to manipulate your emotions with language that is unsupported by action. Many people hesitate to block because they don't want to seem cold or heartless. But protecting your emotional well-being is not cruelty. It is self-preservation. You are not responsible for teaching someone how to treat you properly. You are responsible for deciding what you will and will not accept. Blocking draws a clear line where confusion once lived. It ends conversations that go nowhere and stops the cycle of emotional highs and lows. Words without action also create self-doubt. You start wondering if you're expecting too much, if you're being impatient, if your standards are unrealistic. This internal questioning is a sign that something is off. Healthy connections don't make you question your worth. They reinforce it. Blocking interrupts the slow damage that inconsistency causes before it becomes permanent. When you stop engaging with empty words, you regain power. You stop reacting and start choosing. Blocking is not about proving a point to him. It's about proving something to yourself. It's choosing peace over promises, reality over fantasy, and self-respect over emotional manipulation. Blocking creates clarity where confusion is being fed intentionally. And understanding this is one of the most powerful tools a woman can have in her emotional life. Confusion is never accidental in relationships where someone is inconsistent. When a man sends mixed messages, disappears for days, says one thing but does another, it is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of his unwillingness or inability to be consistent. And that inconsistency is often deliberate, whether he realizes it or not, because it keeps you invested while he maintains control over the pace and direction of your attention. Blocking is the simplest, most effective way to reclaim control because clarity cannot coexist with manipulation. When you remove him from your immediate life, you are forcing reality to show itself. Either he will respect your boundaries or he will confirm through his absence that he was never serious. Either way, clarity emerges. Clarity is essential because humans are wired to seek patterns. When actions and words don't align, the brain works overtime to make sense of it, to predict behavior, and to hope for resolution. This mental effort creates stress, anxiety, and emotional fatigue. By blocking someone, you remove the opportunity to overthink, to reread messages, or to dwell on what-ifs. You stop the endless cycle of interpretation that can keep your mind spinning for hours, days, or even weeks. The moment you block him, you take back that mental energy and redirect it toward yourself, toward your goals, your peace, and your self-respect. Confusion thrives when the brain is allowed to chase inconsistent signals. Blocking is the only guaranteed way to stop that chase. Another reason blocking creates clarity is that it eliminates ambiguity in communication. Some women try to reason with men who send mixed messages, hoping that a conversation will magically reveal the truth. The problem is that conversations can be manipulated, misremembered, or reinterpreted. Words can be twisted, intentions can be questioned, and doubt can creep in. When you remove access, you remove the ambiguity entirely. There is no chance to debate, no room for manipulation, and no opportunity for him to continue controlling your emotional state. Clarity comes because silence and distance allow you to see the situation as it really is, rather than how you wish it could be. Blocking also serves as a mirror for the other person. When someone who sends mixed signals suddenly loses access to you, it can provoke self-reflection. A man who is serious about a relationship may begin to recognize the patterns of his own behavior and correct them. If he doesn't, his disappearance proves his lack of commitment more clearly than any argument could. In this way, blocking is both protective and revealing. It shows him that your time, attention, and emotional energy are not negotiable, and that boundaries have consequences. It sends a message louder than any conversation could. Inconsistency is unacceptable. Importantly, blocking protects your emotional health in a way that explanations cannot. Many women feel the need to explain their actions, to justify their decisions, or to maintain some connection, just in case. But explanations often invite debate, excuses, and justification from the other person, which can prolong confusion and emotional pain. By blocking, you remove the opportunity for continued negotiation, manipulation, or argument. You are telling yourself and him that your emotional well-being is the priority. You are choosing stability over uncertainty and respect over emotional bargaining. Finally, blocking creates space for reflection and growth. Once the confusion is removed, you have the mental and emotional clarity to see patterns, recognize toxic behaviors, and set higher standards for the future. You stop making excuses for inconsistent actions. You stop tolerating behavior that undermines your self-worth. Clarity allows you to evaluate not just this relationship, but the kind of partner you truly deserve. It teaches you that peace is non-negotiable and that access to your life is a privilege, not a right. When you block someone who feeds confusion, you are choosing yourself over a cycle of uncertainty, and that choice is one of the most empowering decisions you can ever make. In short, blocking is not just an action. It is a statement. It is a statement to yourself that your clarity, peace, and emotional stability are worth more than chasing someone who cannot or will not show up consistently. It is a refusal to accept manipulation disguised as affection. It is a step toward reclaiming control, protecting your mental space, and allowing yourself to grow free from uncertainty. Blocking creates clarity because it removes the fog that someone else's inconsistent behavior has placed over your mind and heart. It forces truth to reveal itself, removes ambiguity, and empowers you to prioritize your own well-being over confusion. Silence can protect your peace better than confrontation, and this is a truth that many people fail to realize because we've been conditioned to think that speaking up or arguing is the only way to resolve conflict. But when it comes to relationships, especially with someone who sends mixed messages or behaves inconsistently, confrontation often only prolongs the emotional chaos. Engaging with someone who thrives on confusion gives them more access to manipulate your feelings, more opportunity to twist words, and more control over your mental state. Silence, on the other hand, removes all of that. It creates a boundary that is invisible yet powerful. It signals that your peace is non-negotiable without the need for explanations, drama, or arguments. In many cases, not responding, stepping back, or blocking a person entirely is the most mature and effective form of confrontation. There is because it doesn't feed the fire, it extinguishes it. When someone is sending confusing messages, every response you give can be used against you. Every attempt to clarify, every emotional reply gives them insight into your attachment, your patterns, and your vulnerabilities. They may not even realize they are doing it consciously, but their inconsistency keeps you emotionally entangled. By choosing silence, you remove that power. You stop validating behavior that is manipulative or immature. You stop allowing uncertainty to dictate your emotions. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the ability to protect your emotional and mental space even when others are unpredictable. Silence is a tool that allows you to regain control over your own state of mind. There is a reason silence can feel so uncomfortable to people who are used to arguing, explaining, or negotiating. It forces them to confront the consequences of their actions without you having to say a word. It stops the endless cycle of excuses, promises, and contradictions. When a man realizes he no longer has access to your attention or energy, he is forced to reflect on the inconsistency of his own behavior. He is faced with a choice: either step up and demonstrate commitment, or reveal through his absence that he was never serious to begin with. Silence does not need to explain itself, and that is its power. It gives clarity without confrontation and teaches lessons without raising your voice. Silence also protects your energy from being drained. Emotional conversations with someone who is inconsistent rarely produce resolution. They only prolong the pattern of highs and lows that erode confidence, self-worth, and peace of mind. Over time, this mental and emotional exhaustion can make you doubt yourself, overanalyze every interaction, and tolerate behavior that is beneath your standards. By choosing silence, you create a space where you are not constantly reacting to someone else's instability. You protect your energy, and in doing so, you protect your sense of self. Peace becomes a shield, not a compromise, and silence is the mechanism that holds it in place. Another important aspect of silence is that it allows perspective. When you step away from confrontation, when you remove yourself from the constant back and forth of explanations, excuses, and emotional manipulation, you gain the ability to see the situation as it really is. Patterns become obvious. The difference between words and actions becomes clear. You start to notice whether someone is truly committed or simply keeping you on a string. Without the noise of constant interaction, you can evaluate not just this relationship, but the kind of partner you deserve. Silence provides the mental space for insight, clarity, and emotional growth that confrontation rarely affords. Many people think that setting boundaries means having a conversation or delivering a warning, but boundaries are most effective when they are maintained without the need for repeated justification. When you choose silence, you enforce a boundary that cannot be negotiated, debated, or overridden. You stop explaining why you feel hurt, why you deserve better, or why inconsistency is unacceptable. You simply step back, protect your peace, and let actions speak louder than words. This is especially powerful in romantic relationships because it separates emotional maturity from immaturity. Those who are capable of healthy connection will respect the space you create, while those who are not will reveal their true intentions through absence. Ultimately, silence is a declaration of self-worth. It is an acknowledgement that your peace, your emotional stability, and your happiness are more important than trying to convince someone to behave consistently. It is a refusal to be a participant in chaos disguised as affection. When you block someone or simply stop engaging with messages that confuse and destabilize you, you are not being petty, dramatic, or unfair. You are protecting yourself. You are choosing a state of mind that allows you to be whole, confident, and unshaken by inconsistency. Silence can heal, silence can teach, and silence can empower in ways that confrontation often cannot. It is one of the most effective tools for maintaining emotional integrity and creating the clarity necessary to move forward without regret. If he truly values you, he will correct his behavior without access to you. And understanding this is one of the most powerful lessons a woman can learn about relationships. So often, we think that in order to get someone to behave properly, we have to argue, explain, or negotiate. We believe that if we just say the right words, show enough patience, or try hard enough, we can make him realize our worth and adjust his behavior accordingly. The truth is, a man who values you will recognize your worth and act accordingly without needing constant reminders, explanations, or access to your emotional energy. You don't have to teach him how to treat you with respect. You simply have to set your standards and enforce your boundaries. When he loses access to your time, attention, and energy, the responsibility shifts entirely to him to decide whether he wants to rise to the occasion or not. Men who truly value you do not need a running commentary on what they're doing wrong. They understand the impact of their actions and take accountability. If he loves you, respects you, and sees you as a priority, your absence will trigger reflection, not resentment. He will notice the difference that your presence made in his life, and will make the necessary changes to align his actions with his words. If he doesn't, then his inability to adjust proves what you probably already knew, that he was never serious, consistent, or committed in the first place. You cannot force someone to value you, but you can create an environment where they have no choice but to confront the consequences of their own choices. Losing access is one of the most effective ways to do that. Another important aspect is understanding that access is a privilege, not a right. When someone constantly takes advantage of your availability, whether it's answering their messages late at night, listening to their excuses, or tolerating inconsistent behavior, they are not appreciating your presence. They are exploiting it. Blocking or removing access is a boundary that makes it clear that your time and energy are valuable and cannot be treated as disposable. When a man truly values you, he will respond to this boundary by correcting his behavior because he understands that your presence is meaningful and that losing it is not acceptable. In contrast, a man who does not value, you will ignore the boundary or complain about it, revealing his lack of investment. It is also critical to realize that correcting behavior is an internal process for him. It cannot be achieved through your constant involvement or explanations. Some women fall into the trap of believing that persistence, communication, or emotional labor will make a man see the light or change. But behavioral change has to come from within. Removing access allows him the space to self-reflect and confront his own inconsistencies. When he no longer has you readily available to reassure him, excuse him, or tolerate his contradictions, he is forced to examine his actions. If he values you, he will act. If he does not, he will confirm through absence. Either outcome provides clarity and frees you from the exhausting cycle of uncertainty. Many women also hesitate to remove access because they fear losing the relationship or appearing cold. But the truth is, forcing someone to realize your value through constant presence or emotional labor rarely works. In fact, it often diminishes the very respect you deserve. A man who truly values you does not need to be coerced into acting right. He sees your worth naturally, aligns his actions with that understanding, and respects your boundaries without debate. Removing access is not a punishment. It is a protective measure that preserves your dignity, maintains your self-respect, and gives him the opportunity to correct himself without further enabling poor behavior. When you create this space, you also create emotional clarity for yourself. Too often, women stay connected to men who are inconsistent because they hope things will improve or fear that cutting off access is too drastic. By stepping back, you remove the constant emotional roller coaster and give yourself the chance to see the situation as it really is. You can evaluate whether his behavior is genuine, whether his intentions are clear, and whether he is someone who deserves your time and energy. If he values you, he will act. If not, you are spared further confusion and heartbreak. Clarity always comes with distance. Ultimately, this principle is about self-worth and empowerment. You are responsible for how you allow others to treat you, and you cannot force someone else to value what they do not recognize. By removing access, you are not being petty or dramatic. You are protecting your peace, enforcing your boundaries, and giving yourself the opportunity to step away from manipulation, inconsistency, and disrespect. A man who truly values you will respond by correcting his behavior, showing up consistently, and proving through actions that he respects you. If he does not, the absence confirms the truth without a single word. Understanding this dynamic allows you to stop negotiating with inconsistency and start prioritizing relationships where respect, commitment, and alignment are mutual. When a man sees that your presence is not guaranteed, he is faced with a choice: either act like a grown, committed partner who understands the value of what he has, or reveal through his inaction that he is not capable of meeting you on equal terms. Either way, clarity emerges, peace is restored, and you regain control over your emotional life. No amount of arguing, explaining, or hoping can replace the power of removing access. It is a decisive act that protects your self-respect, reinforces boundaries, and allows a man who truly values you to step up without you having to chase, convince, or tolerate inconsistency. Your worth is not negotiable. And if he truly values you, he will show it. Self-worth grows when you stop negotiating with inconsistency And this is a lesson that can transform the way you approach relationships and life in general. Too often, people, especially women who care deeply, find themselves bending, compromising, and justifying behavior that does not align with their values simply to maintain a connection. We tell ourselves that inconsistency is normal, that everyone has flaws, or that if we just try harder, things will improve. But the truth is, every time you negotiate with inconsistency, you chip away at your own sense of self-worth. You start prioritizing someone else's unpredictable behavior over your own peace, happiness, and emotional stability. True self-worth begins the moment you recognize that you deserve consistency, respect, and honesty, and that you are not required to settle for less. Negotiating with inconsistency teaches people that it's acceptable to treat you as optional. When you tolerate someone showing up when it's convenient for them, but disappearing when it's not, you are reinforcing patterns of behavior that keep you uncertain and anxious. Your time, attention, and emotions are valuable, and every compromise that ignores that value diminishes your confidence and your sense of control. Self-worth grows the instant you stop tolerating such treatment. By refusing to negotiate with behavior that confuses or manipulates you, you make a statement to yourself: your peace is non-negotiable, your emotional well-being matters, and you will no longer allow anyone to define your worth through inconsistency. It is also about recognizing patterns rather than potential. Many people fall into the trap of believing that someone's words or intentions are more important than their actions. He says he cares. We tell ourselves, so maybe he will act right eventually. But actions are the true measure of commitment and respect. A man who is consistent, reliable, and respectful doesn't leave you guessing. A man who is inconsistent may say the right things at the right time, but if his behavior doesn't match, it's a clear sign that his priority is not you. When you stop negotiating with inconsistency, you start trusting patterns over promises. You stop hoping for potential to translate into reality and begin demanding evidence of respect and commitment in real time. This shift is foundational to building self-worth. Another critical aspect is understanding that boundaries are not optional, they are essential. Self-worth grows when you enforce boundaries without apology or justification. Every time you allow someone to cross your limits, it erodes your sense of self. Boundaries teach others how to treat you, but more importantly, they teach yourself how to value yourself. Refusing to negotiate with inconsistency means you are saying clearly, I will not adjust my standards to accommodate your indecision. I will not shrink to make you comfortable. I will not accept behavior that disrespects my time, my emotions, or my presence. That level of self-respect reinforces the understanding that your worth is inherent, not dependent on someone else's approval or attention. Self-worth also grows when you reclaim your emotional power. Negotiating with inconsistency often places the other person in control of your feelings. One day, their attention makes you feel loved. The next day, their absence makes you doubt your value. By refusing to participate in this cycle, you regain control of your emotional state. You decide what behavior is acceptable, when to invest your energy, and when to walk away. Emotional power is built through repeated choices that honor your own needs rather than trying to fix or manage someone else's inconsistent behavior. Each time you enforce your standards and refuse to negotiate, your confidence grows and your understanding of your value deepens. Finally, self-worth grows because refusing inconsistency creates space for healthier connections. When you stop negotiating with behavior that undermines your confidence, you naturally filter out people who are not capable of meeting your standards. This creates room in your life for relationships based on respect, reliability, and mutual care. It allows you to invest in people who show up consistently, who honor your time and emotions, and who value you without requiring constant explanations or compromise. By refusing to settle for inconsistency, you attract relationships that reflect your self-respect, and this reinforces a positive feedback loop. The more you honor your own worth, the more others are compelled to do the same. Self-worth is not about being rigid, unfeeling, or demanding perfection. It's about understanding that your emotional energy, time, and presence are valuable and refusing to trade them for inconsistency, confusion, or manipulation. Every time you set a boundary, every time you walk away from behavior that disrespects you, Every time you demand clarity over mixed signals, your sense of value strengthens. You learn that your happiness does not depend on someone else's behavior. It depends on your willingness to uphold your standards. You begin to see that negotiating with inconsistency diminishes your power, whereas standing firm, enforcing boundaries, and prioritizing your peace elevates it. In essence, self-worth grows exponentially the moment you stop negotiating with inconsistency. You no longer tolerate behavior that diminishes you. You no longer justify excuses for someone else's failure to act responsibly. You no longer allow your peace to be compromised by someone who cannot show up consistently. Each decision to enforce your boundaries, step back, or remove access is an affirmation that your value is non-negotiable. Through these choices, you reclaim control, protect your emotional health, and create the foundation for relationships, opportunities, and experiences that reflect the respect, care, and consistency you deserve. Your worth is not a privilege to be earned, it is your birthright, and refusing to negotiate with inconsistency ensures that you live in alignment with that truth.